Hello everyone and welcome back to Beatley Tones Beatles channel. Lovely to have you here. Thanks for joining me for this video and I hope you're all doing well. As you will have seen from the thumbnail of this video, this is going to be quite a difficult video to make for me. But I kind of wanted to tell you what has been going on with me over the last sort of 8 months or so. Firstly, because, for one reason, one of the things that has kept me sane over this time has been this channel and doing my videos and, speaking to all you guys. And secondly, I kind of want to tell you what is going to be happening on this channel over the next 2 or 3 weeks, so you don't have to wonder. So for those of you that were subscribed to the channel back in November, or you're watching my videos back in November, you will probably recall that I broke my arm at that time. And for those of you that weren't on the channel, just to sort of bring you up to date on how that happened, back in November, I was helping my 83-year-old aunt, who had just moved into sheltered accommodation, move some boxes. She asked me to help her move some boxes around so that she could get to them and empty them. And she had a box on top of a wardrobe which was filled with hardback books. Don't know why. There doesn't seem to be any reason for it to be on top of a wardrobe, but she asked me to get it down. And it's one of these sort of collapsible crate things. And so I got up on some steps and sort of pulled it to the end of the wardrobe. But then once I had to take I was holding it independently of the wardrobe, holding it and bringing it down. The box sort of collapsed and it kind of pulled my arm very sharply down, and I heard the bone crack. And it was the most painful thing I've ever felt in my life. And I'd never broken a bone before that moment. And anyway, I went to hospital and had the usual thing, X-rays, so to confirm that it was broken. And when they asked how I broke my arm, I explained what had happened. And they asked me to take a blood test because they were suspicious about the way that I'd broken my arm. They didn't think that how it happened was sufficient to break a bone like that. The bone that I broke was this bone here, the humerus bone, which goes from your sort of shoulder to your elbow. And so it's quite a big bone. And a couple of weeks later, I got a phone call from the hospital asking me to come in the next day and see a haematologist. So I knew it wasn't going to be good news, because they wouldn't have asked me to go in so urgently. And but I didn't know what the reason was. So I went in the next day and went to see this haematologist. Mrs. Beaton came with me, and he told me that the blood test that they had taken had shown up that I have got something called myeloma, or sometimes known as multiple myeloma, which is a blood cancer. And obviously that was a huge shock. I knew it wasn't going to be good news. I don't know if you've ever been to a sort of a meeting with a specialist at a hospital, for yourself, or maybe they sometimes do this if you've got a loved one that's in hospital and they're going to give you bad news as the family. But they always have like support in there, like they have either a junior doctor or some nurses or something like that to sort of give support to the patient or the patient's family, as it might be. So I knew it wasn't going to be good news. So yeah, he said to me, you've got myeloma. It's a blood cancer, and it's not curable at this time. And then he said, but it is very treatable. Now, if he said it the other way around, if he said you've got blood cancer, but it's very treatable, but unfortunately it's not, it's not curable at this time, I would have felt, slightly less freaked out than than I actually was. And obviously Mrs. Beattie was really upset as well. So that was kind of how I found out. Now, multiple myeloma has got something like about 5 different lines of treatment. So you have the first line of treatment, and when that stops working, because it's it's one of these cancers that you can get rid of, but it can come back. And so when they give you one line of treatment, when that stops working, they give you the next line of treatment. And there's about 4 or 5 different lines of treatment that they've got, and they're kind of developing lines of treatment for this, all the time. Sort of 10 years ago, there wasn't the treatments that they have for this now, like they do now. They've got a lot of different ways to treat it. So that was what the situation was in November, and sort of a couple of weeks later, obviously I knew this, and all you guys were just fantastic. Every time I dropped a video, you were asking how my arm was, and if I seemed a little bit unenthusiastic about I think I always said thanks for asking and that sort of thing, but didn't sort of seem overly enthusiastic about you guys asking about how I was. It was because in the back of my mind I'm thinking, well, if a broken arm was my only worry, then it wouldn't be too bad, but I had this to deal with as well. So the long and short of it is that if I hadn't have broken my arm, I would never have known that I had myeloma, and that could have gone undetected for years and years and years, and caused a lot of damage. And what myeloma is it's a cancer that attacks bone marrow, and so the first thing that I had to have, the first bit of treatment that I had to have was a biopsy. They needed to take a sample of my bone marrow. So it's back to hospital and for this biopsy, and so I go in the room, and they put me on this couch, and they're going to take the bone marrow from the bone at the back of my hip. And so I'm lying on this couch with my back facing outwards so they could get at it. Remember, my arm's in a sling still, and I'm pushing against the wall to try and keep myself still, otherwise my arm would be flapping up and down while they try and get this bone marrow out. And they do it by getting it out through a syringe, which sounds horrendous, and to be honest, it wasn't really that pleasant. I mean, they numb the area and everything, so you don't feel the full weight of the pain, but you can still feel something's going on. There were 2 doctors trying to get this bone marrow into the syringe, and it felt they were having real difficulty trying to get it, because they said to get it, they've got to get the syringe through the bone and then into the marrow. And they said my bone was like really quite tough, and they're pulling away at this syringe, and it felt like one of them had their feet against my back, using it to purchase to get this bone marrow into the syringe, which of course they weren't, but that's kind of what it felt like. Anyway, eventually they did manage to get a sample, and they tested it, and the outcome of this test was good, which would be is a good thing going forward to the next stage, which I'm going to tell you about later in this video. So that was that. They then prescribed a steroid drug called dextromethasone, and they prescribed 20 tablets a day for 4 days, which I took, and that was the beginning of my treatment. Now, I then went to another hospital and saw another haematologist who was an expert in blood cancers, and he was the guy that was going to work out what my treatment would be. And you know, he's a really great doctor, and you know, was really positive about the outcome. You know, he kept saying, you're going to be fine, you're going to be fine. And you know, that gave me a lot of positivity, which I've sort of, you know, the positivity aspect of it I've kept up, you know, throughout this whole thing. But I needed to find that out before I told my kids and my sister what was going on. That was going to be the next job, which was a bit, you know, was quite tough, you know, to tell, you know, to tell my kids and my sister what was going on. You know, I say my kids, but my kids are in their 30s, which is actually worse to give this sort of news to, you know, because if they'd been 9 or 10, you know, they wouldn't have really understood it fully. But obviously, you know, my kids being in the 30s, they, you know, they understood exactly what the impact of cancer could be. But I was, you know, because I'd found out, you know, from the specialist that, you know, he thought I was going to be all right. I was able to relay that to them and to my sister, which made it sort of easier, you know, to dispense that sort of news. Now, anyway, so the hematologist, he worked out what my treatment was going to be, and I was basically going to have 4 cycles of chemo, and each cycle was going to be 3 sessions, and so that was going to be 12, and it was going to be a weekly thing, so it's 12 consecutive weeks of treatment. And the drugs that he prescribed were more of the dextromethasone, the steroids, a drug called daratumumab, which would be dispensed, injected into your stomach. Years ago, they used to give it to you intravenously via a drip, but they found out now that you get better results if you inject it directly into the stomach. And that sounds much more horrendous than it actually is, because when you actually have it, you know, the injection just feels like a little scratch, and it does take about 3 to 5 minutes to dispense, because it's quite a big dose. And what that does is it kind of goes searching after cancer cells and kills them off. So that was one of the drugs. There was also another drug that was also injected through the stomach, which was just a quick injection, very much like you know, the COVID vaccine. It was over before it started, sort of thing. But I've forgotten the name of that drug. He also prescribed a drug called lenalidomide, which again is a tablet, is a tablet form of drug, and you know, that's a drug that stops cancer spreading to other parts of your body. So I was going to have 12 weeks of these tablets. They also, because of this, they also give you lots of tablets to counteract side effects. Now, before I started my chemo, I had an oncology nurse explain, Emma, she's brilliant, she was, but she explained all the things that could, all the side effects that I could have during this chemo, and that would be, you know, things like, you know, a lot of fatigue, a lot of sickness. You could have blood clots, you could have bleeding, you could have diarrhea, constipation, just about anything that you don't really want, you could have from this chemo. And it's, you know, it kind of, you know, threw me back a little bit, and thought, you know, do I really want to go through this? But when it actually, so they give you a whole host of tablets to counteract all these side effects, you know, something to deal with the sickness, something to deal with the diarrhea and blood clots and all that sort of stuff. So at the end of the 4 cycles of chemo, I think I'd worked it out that I'd taken something like about 1,200 tablets. Now, when I was first diagnosed, look, so myeloma is not staged like other cancers. Like, you know, other cancers have stage 1, stage 2. Myeloma isn't treated like that. Not in the UK anyway. I think it is in America, but not here in the UK. Here it's measured by a thing called light chains, which is something that's in your blood. Now, the normal amount of light chains that a person that doesn't have myeloma would be somewhere between 0 and 19. When I was first diagnosed, I had 9,000 of the buggers. You know, I was told by my consultant that that was a spectacular amount, but not in a not in a good way. Anyway, so I started the treatment, and after each cycle of chemo, they would do a blood test, and then they would be able to measure how I was responding to the treatment by checking the light chains and a couple of other statistics from the blood to see how I was doing. So after the first cycle of chemo, the number of light chains had reduced from 9,000 to about 1,000, which is fantastic. So you know, all the time I'm gaining confidence in this treatment and getting more and more positive about it. After the second cycle, it had gone from 1,000 to just over 100, I think it was, and then by the end of the third cycle, it was down to 10.9. Now remember, 0 to 19 is normal, so basically it was normal. Again, you know, the myeloma had gone at this stage. As far as the side effects that I got while I was having my chemo, I was really lucky. I didn't get hardly any at all. The only thing that I really got was fatigue, and I didn't get that often. Probably the worst day that I had was actually Christmas Day, where I sort of zoned out on the sofa at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and you know, fell asleep, woke up, etc., till about 8 o'clock in the evening. And that was probably the worst sort of day that I'd had with fatigue throughout the whole of the sort of the chemo cycles. And when I thought about it afterwards, what happened to me was probably exactly the same thing that was happening to every other you know, middle-aged man or woman in the UK on Christmas Day, and that would be falling asleep in front of the telly on the sofa. So that wasn't too bad at all. Now, the next stage of the treatment is a thing called stem cell transplant. So basically what they do is they give you a month off. You don't take any tablets or have any chemo at all for a month, and then they do a biopsy, another biopsy, the same thing, which was just as unpleasant the second time, and then you go into hospital as an outpatient to where they want to take your stem cells out of your blood. What stem cells are basically special blood cells that will turn into other blood cells, either red blood cells, which are the ones that send your blood around your body, white blood cells, which are part of your immune system, or platelets, which basically stop you from bleeding. And so you go into hospital and you basically get wired up to a machine. You have a line in and a line out, and you're wired up to this machine, and this machine is so clever. Basically your blood goes into it, the machine sorts out your stem cells, puts them in a bag, and then puts the rest of your blood back into you, and you sit there for about 4 hours while this is going on, and they collect millions and millions of these cells during that time. And basically what they do is, you know, they collect enough cells to be able to do a transplant twice, because like I've said earlier, this disease will come back, or can come back, usually does. So they take enough in one go to do it twice, and they basically freeze the cells. So before you're allowed to have a stem cell transplant, you've got to prove your fitness. You have MRI scans and CT scans and kidney function tests, where they take you go to the hospital as an outpatient, and they take a blood sample every hour for 4 hours. So you have a blood sample, you have to go away and amuse yourself for an hour and then come back, and they take another one, etc, etc. I had to see a cardiologist, and he put me through various sort of fitness tests and stuff like that. Also had to see a lung specialist as well, and the outcome of this was that the kidney function was okay and the lungs were okay, but the cardiologist had said that one of the chemo drugs that I was put on, the one that I couldn't remember the name of, had done some damage to my heart, and my heart functionality was kind of reduced by quite a bit, and they decided that it wasn't a good idea to go ahead with the stem cell transplant at that time. So I was supposed to go in at the beginning of May to have it. So basically, they put me on some meds to kind of fix that. I also had to do, I had to help myself a little bit by getting myself a little bit fitter, dropping a little bit of weight. I started going to the gym. I was going to the gym 3 times a week, not doing anything, overly strenuous, but just doing a sort of, fitness class for 30 minutes, 30-minute class like 3 times a week. I was doing all that as well. And then I had to have the cardio tests again, and when they did them again, it was fine. So we were allowed to go. I was allowed to go ahead with it. They thought it might take 3 months or it might take 6 months, but it actually took 3 months. So which was really good. So I am going in for this stem cell transplant next Tuesday, the 30th of July. I go in on the 30th. On the next day, they are going to give me a strong dose of a chemo drug called methylene, which will make my hair fall out. It will also totally kill my immune system, so I'll be very, chance of getting infection is very high. And they've said they'd be amazed if I don't get an infection while I'm in hospital. And I've just got to hope that it's not, a serious infection. I can cope with a cold or a cough or something like that. So I will be in hospital for about 3 weeks. Now, might be a little bit more, might be a little bit less. It just kind of depends on how I recover. So I've decided that I'm not gonna take my chances and let my hair sort of fall out in clumps. I'm going to have my head shaved before I go in, which is going to be really, really weird. Not sure. It's not that I've got great hair anyway. I haven't. And what makes it worse is I've got the worst shaped head for wearing hats ever. There are no hats on this planet that actually suit me. But that's what I'm gonna have to do. So that is gonna. I didn't want to sort of let my hair fall out in clumps, just in case it grew back in clumps as well. In 2 or 3 months or however long it takes to come back. They have said that there is a chance when it does start to grow back that it might not be ginger anymore. It might be a completely different colour. We'll have to just wait and see. But that is so they're going to give me this high dose of methylene when I go in, and it is brutal. It will just kill any sort of cancer cells that are still sort of lingering in my body, but it does also kill your immune system, my immune system down to nothing. And it can really, when it's being administered, and it's just administered intravenously, it takes about half an hour, but it can also really burn the inside of your mouth and your throat. So they bring you a load of ice lollies, or popsicles as you call them in America, to suck on while you're getting this, and that is supposed to reduce the sort of the burning on the inside of the mouth. So that is what's going to happen on day 2 in hospital. In day 3 I will have the transplant, and basically again it's something that's it's not very invasive. You just get wired up to the machine. They'll bring out my bag of stem cells that they took a few months ago, and I'll be hooked up to a machine, and they'll just come back into my body. Now they've kind of said to me that I'll probably be all right for about the first 5 days, and then I'll sort of start to feel really shit. A lot of sickness and diarrhea and very, very tired and all that sort of thing. And that would be around the time where the stem cells are making their way in, back into my bone marrow. And this although it's not an invasive procedure, it is really a big deal because, you know, quite a lot can go wrong and that sort of thing. But just, you know, I just hope that it doesn't, and it's, you know, it's a success. The whole point of having this stem cell transplant, now that I am in remission, is that the transplant is like a reset button. It's kind of like rebooting your computer. You're kind of rebooting your body, and it can keep you in remission for a long period. You know, hopefully several years. So that is the point of having it, but it's quite an unpleasant thing to go through. So they've said, yeah, our first 5 days will be okay, then you'll feel rubbish for about 10 days, and then you'll start to recover. And, you know, they'll let me out once I'm, you know, starting to get a little bit of energy back, and you know, and eating and drinking properly, and my immune system is starting to rebuild itself. So I'm going to be in hospital for about 3 weeks. It might be a little bit more, might be a little bit less, depending on how I recover. But as far as the channel goes, I'm probably not going to be making any videos during that time. I'm not going to make any in hospital, I don't think, unless I'm feeling really good, you know, unexpectedly. I'll probably take my tripod in just in case, but, you know, don't expect anything from me during those 3 weeks. And please, you know, please stick around. I will be back. Now, there might be a chance that I can make a video before I go in, and if I do, I will hold that back until when I am in hospital, not able to do anything, and I'll post it, you know, after a week or so, once I've been there. But as I say, you know, do stick around. I will be back, and got lots of great things planned for the channel. Now, you know, all the way through, I have tried to, you know, to stay positive, and, you know, and be positive, and keep my sense of humour and all that. And I hope that has come out in the videos that I've made, you know, since I was diagnosed back in November. I have to say, Mrs. Beatley-Tone has just been absolutely amazing during this time. You know, right back at the beginning, when, you know, I just wasn't, you know, I was still sort of taking it in. She was making all the appointments for me. You know, I've had so many appointments, so many blood tests, scans, and, you know, all these other tests that I've been talking about. You know, I had so many injections. I had more pricks in me than a second-hand dartboard, I can tell you. And she has been to every single appointment that I've had in the last, you know, 8 months. She's been by my side and giving me great support. I've had great support from my friends and other members of my family as well. So I am doing okay. But she has just been an absolute rock. You know, when the consultants are telling me things, you know, you know, because it's you that's got the cancer, you kind of tend to glaze over a bit, but she was there sort of taking notes, and, you know, asking all the right questions, and planning questions before we knew we were going to have a consultancy, you know, with either the heart bloke or the lung bloke or the hematologist or whatever. You know, she was prepared and making all those, you know, asking all the right questions and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I've had, you know, she's been amazing, and I've had fantastic support from my friends and family as well. So I'm doing okay. Myeloma is quite a rare cancer. In the UK, there is only 24,000 people that have got it, and because of that, it has become a low priority cancer. So it's not funded by the government, and it's not funded by Cancer Research UK. Myeloma UK has to do its own funding, and 3 or 4 weeks ago, it was Myeloma Awareness Week in the UK, and they were running a sponsored walk, and they wanted to raise £24,000 because there are 24,000 sufferers. And Mrs. Beatley Tone and my sister, they did a sponsored walk. They had to walk 24 miles in a week or something like that, and get sponsorship for that. And Mrs. Beatley Tone, she raised nearly £3,000, and my sister raised nearly £1,000 as well for Myeloma UK, which was also just fantastic as well. Okay, so there's that. And I am absolutely petrified of this stem cell transplant, even though it's not going to hurt. It's just, it's just going into the unknown, and sort of, lots of things can go wrong, but hopefully they won't. And so fingers crossed, and wish me luck, and hopefully it'll all be okay. One thing I've learned about cancer during the last 8 months is that we should never be afraid to talk to someone that's got it about it. I can remember, back in the 70s when I lived at home, like in our house, like if someone, my mum knew had cancer, she would virtually, whisper the word cancer. She's got cancer. Like she was saying cunnilingus. You know what I mean? And I've been guilty of that as well. You kind of don't like to use that word, but people that have got it, it really does help if you are straight with them and you talk to them about it. It really does help. So that is pretty much it. I also just want to say, during the last 8 months when I've had this going on in the background, this channel means a lot. It means a lot to me. I love doing videos. I love chatting to you all, and you have all kept me sane with your comments. I've really enjoyed chatting with you and answering your comments, and doing the videos and stuff like that. And so thank you for that. The channel, as I say, it means a lot to me, and it has really helped. Is one of the things that has kept me sane during these 8 months. Right, okay, well, that is it from me. I'm not going to say what I normally say, and that is, thanks for watching the video. Obviously, it's still relevant, but I'm not going to say I hope you enjoyed the video, because I don't expect it's not that sort of video that you really enjoy. I haven't really enjoyed making it, I can tell you, because it's kind of been a bit of reliving it all. But if by any chance any of you have had any sort of experience with people that or maybe yourself, that with myeloma, or people that have had a stem cell transplant, and you want to tell me something positive about it to keep me going, please do so down in the comments, because I would love to hear some positive stories, and that'll keep me positive and buoyant. Okay, that is it from me. I will see you all on the other side, as they say. Bye bye.